So with that being said, the only other thing I'll mention is some of you have some great ideas about how to enhance RMS, and those ideas are great. We ask that you submit those to your CCB member. If you don't know who that is, there's a list on the RMS SharePoint site that will tell you who that is. You can submit it to them. It goes through a process of being voted on by the CCB, and then it goes to the steering committee, and then if it's approved, it filters back down to the PMO, and we work with the contractor to get that implemented. They do take some time to go through that whole process and to get implemented, so we ask that you be patient, but if it's something that you feel like is a very hot topic and something that really affects your day-to-day work or affects a lot of users, please stress that to your CCB members so that they can state that during the CCB call so that when it goes for vote, folks know that it needs to be given a higher priority because, again, when they vote, it's actually assigned a priority before it comes to the PMO. So with that said, I don't want to take up too much more time of me talking. I'm going to turn this over to Jen and let her get started. And then, like I said, we want to leave time at the end for questions. But if you have any questions in the meantime, or there's anything specific that you would like us to answer or go over or show you during this session, please put it in the chat, and we will do our best to pull it up and show you how to do that. So with that, I will turn it over to you, Jen.
Thank you so much, Carrie. As Carrie mentioned, my name is Jennifer McGuigan. I am the lead technical support for the RMS Support Center. So if you have any questions, I'm usually the one that will direct all of that information. For today's training, we have quite a bit on our plate. We're going to talk about, I'm going to briefly discuss some of the changes that have happened since the fall of last week. If there's time at the end, then I will go ahead and go over them. But the main topics for today are going to be the changes that have been made to how to get help inside of RMS, as well as the closeout section of RMS. So really quickly, let me just go ahead and go over the changes that we have made to RMS in the last 4 to 6 months. The biggest ones is the PII access. Some of you would have noticed that the PII access was kind of changed. Right now, the only people that have to have PII access granted to them are those that do not log in with their CAT card. So if they're logging in with their email, username, and password, those are the ones that have to have PII access. And if there's time at the end, I'll go over how that is done. Another new thing that we have added is we've added notifications for a secondary reviewer's comments on the transmittals. You now have the option to turn that on, so that way when the secondary reviewer has completed their comments, you can actually be notified either email, phone, or through RMS itself in order to get that information. We've also added the reason code to the change request review. We've increased the description column in the transmittals in review in the main screen. We've also increased the QA narrative details box when you're looking at the QA narrative so that it shows up a bigger screen so you can see more at one time. We've added the multi-signing. We've added a multi-signing feature to the QA report. So if you have a lot of QA reports that need to be signed at one time, you can do that now. We have separate dates requested and dates received for various different things. We have allowed a return code of F for FIO transmittals. We have the history capture for the QA/QC deficiencies that have been added. And we have added a document package to the QA/Q deficiencies. And then let me go ahead and bring up RMS. I'm not showing my screen at this point because this is just a basic overview of what we're doing. So let me show you some of that really fast. And then let's see here. The biggest one, the notifications, I'll go ahead and show you where those are really fast. If you're in, I'm already logged into the district and I've opened up a contract in the administration tab. When you go to the contract notification control, you want to be able to have a secondary reviewer. What you do is you come down here and you'll look for your transmittal review completed by secondary reviewer, and you'll check the boxes of how you want to be reviewed. And when you do that, you need to make sure if you're going to notify by SMS or email that you have put in your phone number and your email address here. Something to keep in mind is this information, what you put in here, is going to be for every single contract that you have. However, the checkboxes are going to be contract specific. So if you enter in someone else's phone number here and you've asked for notifications on this one, but you have another contract that you want notifications sent to your phone number, unfortunately, one is going to overwrite the other one. So the last number that you enter in is going to go across all of them. The same thing with the email address. So at this point in time, that has been added, so now you can understand when a secondary reviewer has completed. We do not yet at this time provide who that secondary reviewer was. That is something that is in the works and will be brought out later in later dates. Okay, so the next biggest thing that we have introduced was for security purposes, we had to shut down the ability for users to submit tickets through RMS. So in the past, you were able to come over here to this help button and then open up the help module in order to submit a ticket. Right now, we are no longer allowing that, again, for security purposes. So now what you'll see is this open a support ticket. When you click on this button, it is going to open up a web page, and let me bring it over to the right screen, just like this. Now, I'm bringing this up because Jira does not work with Internet Explorer, and most of the government computers are going to default to Internet Explorer. If your default web browser is not Internet Explorer, then yours will open up just like it's supposed to. So in order to be able to view your stuff, if you have Internet Explorer as your default, then I would suggest what you're going to do is you're going to copy this address that's up here. Just do a Control-C on your keyboard, or you can right-click on it and choose Copy, and then open up either Chrome, Edge, or Firefox, I believe is the other one. And then what you'll do is you'll come over to a new tab, and then up in the address bar, you will click on Control-V, or you can right-click and paste. Now, you will have to remove this part here and then just add Service Desk. If you don't remember that, that is okay, because you can always go to our website, and the link will be on the website from there. And then press Enter. Once you have done that, it will take you to this page. If you have not logged in with the web browser before, it's going to take you to a login screen. And if you don't remember what your password is, your username is going to be your USAFE email address. If you don't remember what your password is, Jira will send you a little box to change your password. Here, let me open up that screen so I can show you what that looks like. But before I do that, one thing. When you get to this screen, if you want to submit a ticket, all you have to do is you need to click on this RMS support ticket, and it will bring up this information here where you can fill out the information that you need and attach any files that you would like to send to the help desk, and they can help you. Now, if you want to be able to view your tickets and you're not checking your email or you're not seeing it in your email, when you log in, what you can do is you can come over here to this request button. You can click on this, and you have two options. You can either choose Created by Me or you can choose All. Now, the Created by Me is for tickets that you specifically have submitted. The All is going to be tickets that you are on, but not necessarily that you have submitted. So when you click on Created by Me, it's going to show you a list of all of the tickets that you have. Now, for my particular user, I don't have any tickets, so there is not going to be anything showing up in here. Now I'm going to log out and show you what the screen looks like if you forgot your password. So let me come back and paste and change this to Service Desk. Oh, I forgot to finish logging out. Jira does a two-step log out process. It's something that a lot of places don't do, but Jira is one of those. So if you don't accidentally mean to log out, it will do that. So at this point, this is where you're going to enter in your USAFE email. Email, and then press Next. And it's going to ask for your password. If you don't remember your password, that's okay. You can just click on this Forgot Your Password, and then check your email, because once they've sent that to you, they're going to send you an email. Let me bring that up so I can show you what it looks like. that will look like this for you to be able to reset your password. And as you can see, there's a button here. Now, as you know, on the government computers, the ACIT and CEIT is actually going to shut it down and show it as blocked. There are two ways that you can get around this. You can either click on this and copy from the HTTP all the way down to the bottom, or you can right-click on it and choose Copy Hyperlink. I'm just going to go with Copy Hyperlink, and then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to paste it inside this web browser. Now, when I paste this, I need to make sure that I get rid of the word blocked in front of it. Once I do that, I can hit the enter button, and it will bring me to this screen right here where I can create my new password. And then I have absolutely no idea what my password was before, but for safety, I'm going to just make it fairly simple. Just 1 minute while I copy this over here. I've already pre-written it down so that way you don't have to see me try and type that. And then once it's confirmed, you'll be able to go and it'll send you straight here to the login screen. So you don't have to re-log in. And as you can see, I actually do have 2 requests in this one, and that's showing up by this number too. Those are the biggest changes. And again, if you don't remember how to do this, we will have this posted up on the website and on YouTube for you to later look at. Okay, so the next thing that I want to talk about is the closeout section in RMS. So when your contract is finished and everything is done, you still have to clean it up and tidy it up and get all of that stuff taken care of. And most people don't actually use the closeout section in RMS. However, we have provided it for you in order to be able to make it easier. Now, one of the things about the closeout section in RMS is most of this needs to be done on the government side. The contractor can only do a limited number of things at this time to add to the closeout section of RMS. The first thing that I'm going to talk about in the closeout section is the real property, because everything really starts with the real property. If you don't have any real property in here, you can't put it on the DD1354, and you can't add it to the warranty items or anything like that. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to add real property. There are 2 ways in which you can add real property. You can open up the module itself like this, and you can click on the Add button. And then once you hit the Add button, it's going to go through and it's going to bring up this page here. What you'll see here is this Select Real Property Unique Identifier. This information is going to be pulling from P2 if your project is linked to a P2 project. If your contract is not linked to a P2 project, when you click on this, nothing will show up in here. Now, in this case, this one is linked to a P2 project, but I'm not going to choose it because I'm not interested in that particular one. You can enter in your facility information, and then you can also select your category code. When you click on this button, you can go through and find all of the category codes as you need. If you know what the number is, then you can simply just type in the number up here. Let's see, 13185. And that will limit the list. If you don't know the number, but you do happen to know that it's something for a building, then you can just type in building up here in this search bar, just to shorten it up so that way you're not looking at too many things. Now, one thing to notice is this drop-down box over here. There are 3 different types. You have the Army codes, you have the Navy codes, and you have the U.S. Air Force codes. So depending on which type of codes you need it for, will depend on which of these are going to be. I'm just going to stick with the Army, and in this case, I'm going to do the company headquarters building and click OK. And then it will fill out the category code, it will fill out the description, it will also fill out the units, and you can change these ones by clicking on these. When you click on them, it will bring up the lookup to show you all of the options that you have. So if you need to change it, you can, but the default is already set to square footage, so I'm just going to leave that one as is. And then I can go through and add the quantity for both of those ones. If I need to, I can add the type of the construction, whether or not it's sustainable, not evaluated, or not applicable, how much the construction costs. And then the next thing is the funding source. Now, some things have more than one funding item, in which case we use this checkbox. Click on the checkbox to allow more than one funding. What you will notice, though, is over here, this is the percentage of how much it's funded by. The default for the first one is always 100%, and you cannot change that one. The only way to change the first one is by changing the second one. So first, you're going to want to find out, okay, let's set the funding source first. So I'm going to click on this blue box here. And then once that pulls open, I'm going to say this was the base realignment closer. They're the ones that paid for most of it. And then I'm going to go with another funding source, and I'm going to click on that one here. And in this case, it was paid for by the military personnel, and I'm going to say okay. Now I'm going to say, let's see here, I think military personnel paid 25%. And what you'll see is once I enter that 25%, this one changes from 100% to 75%. So that way the totals are correct. You can then choose your funding organization by clicking this look up here and sorting through whichever funding organization it happens to be. And you can also choose your interest code by clicking on the blue box and showing this information. Now, both the information in this box and this box are hard-coded into RMS, and they cannot be changed at this time. And whether or not you enter this information will depend on your district policy and the contract itself, as well as the real property that you're putting in there. If you have any additional remarks, you can add them here, and other information, you can add one there. Now, this is the way to add them one at a time. And unfortunately, if you have a lot of real property, that seems to be a little cumbersome. So to make your life easier, we've added a way for you to be able to add multiple real properties at one time. So to do that, I'm going to come over here to this contract menu. Now, one thing to note, RMS does not have a quote-unquote save feature. What it does have is a back button. So if you feel like you've made some changes and you want to make sure something is saved, always push the back button first before checking any one of these other shortcut options here. So I already saved these changes. You know that because when you close that back button, it will do a little circle and it says that it's updating some information. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on this contract menu button, and then I'm going to go over to the Import Export module and then Import Real Property. This is where you have the ability to enter a bunch of real property at one time and upload it at the same time. And I'll talk about this stuff down here in just a minute. But first, let's talk about this template. In order to do that, you need to download the template to your computer first. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on this download. It's going to take you to your Internet Explorer, and then it's going to ask you what you want to do with it. Or it's going to open up a dialog box automatically. I'm going to tell it I want to save it. So it's going to sit there and put it in the downloads. It depends on how your web browser is set up. Mine is set up to automatically save things to the downloads folder. However, you can change that if you would like to, and then it will open up a dialog box asking you where you want to save. I'm not going to go over that right now, but what I will do is I will go ahead and go to the downloads location so I can show you what you need to do in order to use this template. So let me click on this downloads. Now, here is the file that I have downloaded. It is a zip file, so at this point, I can't really use it as it stands, so I'm going to right-click on this with my mouse, and I'm going to tell it to extract all. Once I have done extract all, let me bring the notification over to the screen. What you will see is it's automatically going to default to extracting to the same place that you had downloaded the file in the first place. If that is not where you want it to extract to, then you just click on this Browse button over here. And then search for the location where you want to actually have it go ahead and extract. So in this case, I'm going to put it here in my webinar trainings folder. I'm going to select the folder, and then I'm going to choose Extract. And then once it's done, there was a checkbox check that went ahead and opened up for me to show me that it was done. Now, the two files that were in there are this real import property instructions, and this will tell you how to use the file, and I'll go over that as well. I'm going to go ahead, let me open this up. So these instructions are actually really good, but the one thing to note is, here we go, give me just 1 second. There it is. There we go. So these are the instructions. Now, when you go through and read these instructions, you'll go all the way down to the bottom, and you'll notice that it will tell you that you will need to save it as a CVS file. That is only the case if you're going to be importing this into RMS 238 or QCS 238. Let's see, we have a question really fast. It says, you can pull once all the real property. Does it mean you can replace if repeated? Yes, and I will go over that in just a moment. So for the template itself, if you are pulling it into RMS 3.0, you don't need to worry about changing the template. You're just going to use it as the Excel file. So XLSX or XLS will be just fine, and it will import correctly at that point. Remember, only use the CSV if you are going to be using RMS 238 or QCS 238. I'm going to go ahead and close that. And then the other thing that it puts in there is the real property template final version, this file right here. I'm going to go ahead and open this up so that you can see what it looks like. Okay. Now, for those of you that joined us for last week's training, you will remember that there was also a template for the submittal section, and as you can see, it looks almost exactly the same. So my advice to you when you're doing this is to ensure when you open up this file that this says it's the real property and it is the one that you are looking for. See, it looks like we have another question. I don't know if this is the right one to ask this, but when entering primary and secondary units, is there a way to get it to say NA with an RMS to USC requirements if that set of units is not being used? Are you referring, let me pull up RMS really fast to make sure I understand the question before I fully answer that one. All right, so in here, if you're talking about these two units right here, is that correct, Joanne? Yeah, James is correct. NA is not one of the options. At this time, there is no way to put an NA for that option because the only choices that you have are this one here. Now, that being said, at the time, you're just going to use that one. You'll probably want to, if it's not something, so if this is a unit that you're not using and no other unit is done, I would add that either in the item remarks or the additional item info. So that way, whoever's taking a look at it will be able to see that, and it will show up in some of the reports as well. And you can just say, square foot not used, using XYZ instead. At this time, this is the only way that we can do that. Okay. So, James did put out a good point. You can use each instead because that is just a fairly generic one. So if you look for each, oops, if I could spell, there we go, then you can just choose each. So it's not really any kind of unit. It's just whatever quantity that you happen to be. So you can choose the each option, choose OK, and then just say each unit is XYZ, whatever that unit happens to be. And then that way they'll know what you want to do for that particular case. Okay, so then back to the template. With this template, after you have verified that this is the correct template that you want to do, the first thing that I would advise you is to click on this Enable Contents if you see it, and then do a file save as, because you're going to want to save this for the contract that you're going to be entering it into. So I'm going to do a file and choose Save As, and in this case, I'm going to change the name. This is going to be my real property for my contract, real property Closeout Training, as that's the name of my contract, 2021. And then I'm going to, if I don't want to save it to this location, there are two ways that you can do that. You can specifically tell us this PC, and it will bring up a different dialog box, so you can just navigate up until you see where you want it to go. In this case, I'm going to stick it in my webinar training, and then choose, I already have one slightly close to that, so let me add, that's 2 on this one. Because the one that I want to use is this one here, which I'll show you in just a second. Okay, now that you have saved that, the next thing that you need to do is you need to make sure you enter the contract number and the delivery order number for your contract in order for it to import. If you do not enter this information in here, or if it is incorrect, it will not import into RMS. And this is just to prevent you accidentally putting it from the wrong contract. So say you had another contract that had a different number and you didn't realize you were grabbing the wrong one when you were uploading it. This is to prevent that from happening. So the easiest way to find out what your contract number is and to copy it over is to come back over here to RMS. And from here, because I did make this change. Because I made a change, I need to click on the back button to save all that information, and then I can go to the contract menu, and then come over here to the administration tab, and then to the contract description. From here, I can copy over my contract number by either doing Control-C as in cat on my keyboard, or I can right-click on it and choose copy. Then I'll come back over to my Excel file, and in here, what I'm going to want to do is, with Excel, because these are special cells, you can't just click on this and then do a Control-Paste. You have to click on it and then come up to this text box, and then you can choose Paste from here, and it will show up there. Now, for this particular contract, if you have a delivery order number, you can also copy that, but since this one does not, I'm just going to type NA in here and call that done. And then for the title and location, you can copy that from your contract description as well, and then paste it in here, but it is not necessary. It's like we have another question. Let's see here. Research available for CD and is there a particular section that I can use to research and CPAR is not available? I'm going to leave that question for James, as I am not familiar with CPAR, and I'm not sure what the resource advisor actually needs for that kind of information. So, James wants to know if you are asking whether CPAR is up and running or not. It looks like CPAR would not be up and running. This was from Stephanie Chili's. Okay, so Stephanie, we will try to answer your question a little bit later after we have gone over that, if that's okay. Because that one looks like it's going to be a little bit more in depth and it's slightly off topic of what we are talking about right now. So, that one has to do with CFUMs. Let's see, Ronnie Knott has a question. Can you click on what you did to get RMS real property spreadsheet connectivity shows in delayed mode? Do you mean by delayed mode by where I had to click the enable button? I do apologize. I'm not entirely sure what delayed mode means.
No, the internet connection's kind of slow, so your mouse is like you click one spot and it jumps somewhere. So I just wondering what did you click to get to that point, and then you went back and forth. Just real quick, that's all.
Gotcha. Okay, so for where I got the contract number or for where I pulled it from RMS?
When you pulled it from RMS.
Okay, so let me go ahead and pull back up RMS. And now at my screen, I'm currently on the contract description. I'm going to click on the contract menu to get out of the contract description. I didn't make any changes, so I'm not going to hit the back button for saving, but it's still going to ask me if I want to save changes. In this case, I'm just going to cancel changes and exit because I didn't change anything. From here, it's in the import-export module, and then in the import real property module. Now, I'm going to wait just a minute to see if my screen will show up and go on, because where it is once you open up the real property import module, there is a button in there that says download template. Do you see where my mouse is now pointing at download template?
So stop.
Hmm?
No.
Are other people having issues seeing my screen? Is it really delayed?
It's okay with us.
Okay, so some people are seeing it, some people are not. Okay. For those of you that unfortunately are seeing some delay, I apologize, but again, we will be posting this on our website, so you will be able to go back and look at it again once we get it up onto the internet. So basically, if you go into RMS, you go to the Import-Export tab, and then open up the Import Real Property module. In the middle of that screen, there's a button that says Download Template. That button is going to save the Excel zip files onto your computer. And from there, you can extract it and put it on any location that you would like for it to go to, in which case you can actually use the template at that point in time.
Got it.
Okay? All right. So back in the template, I'm going to open up my other template because I've already filled out a little bit of information for that one, and that is this one right here. Okay, so now that this one is open, what you will see is some of the information that you are going to be needing to add will be in these boxes right here. You will not be able to edit any of the colored boxes. If the box is colored, you can't change that, so I wouldn't worry about it if you try and change some of this stuff. It's going to give you an error message saying that it cannot be done. But the thing to note about this is for this template, it's just like the submittals template. If you have any blanks in the A column, if you have any blank cells in the B, C, or D column, RMS will stop importing at that point in time. So it is very important that these cells right here that I'm highlighting, starting from A8 all the way down to D, however many real properties you have. So say you have 50, it would be D50, that would be 59 if I can add properly. You will need to have information in every single one of them in order to make sure everything gets added into RMS. Now, once you know what the facility is, you'll go ahead and add those names. The category codes go here. Now, these ones can be found in the system library of the district. So let me go ahead and go over there and show you what that looks like. So if you need to go to the system library and you are currently in the import, the fastest way to do this is to click on this contract selection button that shows up right here, or you can click on back, I think 3 or 4 times. So I'm just going to go here. Ah, that's correct. Gerald did remind me. One of the things about the template that's really nice, you can click on this button right here and right-click on it and choose Show High Note in order to view what information is in this file. So that way you can see how to use this file and the information. This is the same thing that is in the PDF file that I showed you at the beginning. And again, this also says to save it as a CSV file, but again, that's only if you're going to be using RMS 238. If you're using RMS 3.0, just leave it as an XLS or XLSX file, and you're good to go. Okay. So so when you're in the district, if you want to be able to see what the category codes are, you come over here to the system library. And once that has opened, you're going to be looking at the category codes and units module that's down here. Open that up. And you'll see up at the top that there are 4 tabs up here. If you don't know what the code number is, because that's why you're coming over here to look for it, but you know that it was the missile launching pad, you can just come to this search and start typing in the word missile. And there's a whole bunch, so you want to reduce that, and we can come from launching. And that will reduce it so that way you can see that here's the category code. It's 116668, and then it has a unit of an SY. Again, if you are not using an Army category code, you can use a Navy category code or a United States Air Force category code. And then all of the units of measurement can be found in here. So if you know that you want to use meters, you can just type in meters to reduce this down, and you can see that the unit is an ME. So when you're filling out the Excel format here, you'll know what information to put here. And now let me go ahead and hide this again because I don't want to open this full entire time. And as you can see, I've already got some codes in here. Now this one, if I remember correctly, is deliberately incorrect because it does happen. We do tend to type stuff in, and when we go too fast, sometimes we put too much in or we hit the wrong number, in which case you'll still be able to import this into RMS, but the category code will not show up. And I'll show you how you can fix that one after we've imported it. Now, for this one, you can add your construction costs, any remarks that you need to add to it. And then in this section, you can only choose one of these options. It's either permanent, semi-permanent, or temporary. If you try to do all three of them, when you import, you will get an error message from RMS saying, yeah, you can't do that. So please make sure you only pick one of those three. For the unit of measurements, these ones, you go ahead, you can fill these ones out if you want to. However, you don't necessarily need to fill out the unit numbers because if you have the category codes, when it imports, even if they're not in here, then the default will show up. However, if you want to change it from the default, then you can go ahead and fill out these informations. And then add your quantities for those ones. And if you have a unit 2, you can add that information, but you don't necessarily have to have that in here. And then the last thing would be for the funding sources here. Now, with these ones, if you only have one funding source, then you don't need to put anything in here. Let me enable this content so I can actually edit it and delete. Now, notice it's going to give you all of these error messages. You can ignore these. This is just Excel's way of letting you know that, hey, you have a number in here, but this field is a text field. You want to leave it as a text field, and so if you see any of these kind of error messages, you can pretty much ignore those ones. So for this particular real property, I want this one to just be 100%, so I'm going to put this at 100%, and I'm not going to put anything in these categories because there's no funding source 2 or 3 for this particular one. And then when it imports, it will only show the one funding source instead of showing all of the funding sources. And then if required, you can enter the funding organization code and the interest code. For these ones, if you don't know what the numbers are, my advice to you would be to go to the Closeout module. So I'm going to come over there now. I need to go back to contract selection and then open up my contract. And once my contract opens, I'm going to go to import, export. Oh, sorry, closeout. I'm going to closeout tab and then going into the real property module. And then I'm just going to open up one that I already have. If you don't have one in there, just add one because you can delete it fairly easily. And then click on this box to see what the codes are. You can also print this out if you need to by clicking on this export button so you can save it to your computer. And then once you have the information that you need, you can go ahead and enter that into your Excel file. I would export this and save it so that way you have it easier access somewhere on your computer in the future. I'm going to go ahead and cancel this one and then do the same thing for your interest codes. If you need this one, you can click on this export button and it will save it to your computer so that you always have these codes available and easily to find on your computer. And I'm going to go ahead and cancel this one and come back over to my file. Once all of this information is done, you're going to go ahead and save it. You can either do a Control-S on your keyboard or you can just do a file save, and it will save the document. Now that it's ready to be imported, I'm going to go ahead and close it because if you do not close it, it will give you an error message when you try to import. So going back over to the Import-Export tab and the Import Real Property module. At this point, now we're ready to import. We have a couple of things to talk about before we do that. There are two ways to import real property. You can either overwrite real property, and this, I believe, is the answer to someone else's question, whether or not you can easily change what's in there, and that's using this option here. So say you accidentally imported real property from another contract, and you're like, oh, wait, I don't want to do that, and here's my list from another file. So what you will do when you come into import is you will choose this overwrite existing real property. However, most of the time, I would highly recommend you use the merge option because there is a possibility that when you're working on it, maybe somebody else has already added some real property and that needs to stay in there, then I would choose the merge. But to save yourself, if you want, when you're doing an overwrite, before you do the overwrite, you can click on this Export Real Property Items to Excel, and it will take the real property items that you currently have in RMS and export it to Excel file for future reference in case after you've overwritten it, you realize, oh, wait, I needed that stuff in there. Let me bring that back in there. You will have a copy by clicking on this Export Real Property Items to Excel. So that way you know what it was before. In this case, we're just going to go ahead and import real property items from Excel. I am going to overwrite only because the ones that I had in there from before were from my earlier tests, and I do want to show that there is going to be a change because the very last one that I changed added 100% to one of the funding ones. So I'm going to choose Import Overwrite, and it's going to tell me, but there are already 6 in there. Are you sure that's what you really want to do? And I'm going to say yes, because I know that what those are, and I know that I'm okay with deleting those ones. So I'm going to choose yes. Anytime you do any kind of overwrite, it's going to ask you to verify you are who you say you are, and it's going to keep a record that you were the one that actually set and deleted this information. So if you are a CAC login this is what it's going to look like. It's going to ask you for your PIN after you click OK. If you log in with the username and password, it's going to ask you for your password. See here, where is it asking for my PIN? There it is. Bring this over here. Just enter your PIN in, and then when it's done, it's going to bring up a message. Well, first it's going to ask you which file do you want to import, and that is this one here, and I'm going to choose Open, and it's going to go through, refresh the data, and it's going to tell you, okay, we've imported the items, and it tells you exactly how many have been imported and which contract number was imported to. And you click OK. At this point, we can go back to the contract menu because no data here was changed inside that module. It was all done in the Closeout Real Property module. So back in the Real Property, now you can see instead of the 6 that I had before, I have 3. And notice this first one here doesn't have a category code or a description, as I said. I deliberately entered the incorrect category code so that way you guys could see what would happen if you accidentally have a typo. Because it does happen. So in this case, I had the wrong category code, but I can fix that just by double-clicking on it and choosing this box here and then searching for my building. Let's see here. We'll go with this one. All arm storage installation. Say OK. And then, of course, it will fill out all of that information. But as you see, all of this information was already filled out based off of what I imported from the Import-Export module. Okay, so that's pretty much getting the real property. Once your real property has been installed, or not installed, added to RMS, now you can come over to this Transfers DD1354 module to fill out your Transfers DD1354 form. You can add as many DD1354s as you need. I already have one added on here, but I'm going to go ahead and show you the process of adding another one. So we're going to click on this Add button right here. And what you will see up at the top is that you have 3 tabs up at the top. Header, Real Property, Deficiencies, and Remarks. Now, these 3 tabs are used to fill out this form 1354, which you can view anytime you would like at this point right here. I'm going to go ahead and open it up and show you what it looks like when there is nothing entered into the document. And this is our 1354, and as you can see, there's nothing really in here at this point other than the contract number. Everything else is pretty much not filled out because we haven't added any information to the module itself. So let me close this, and I'll explain where this information comes from. So in the header portion here, in this part up at the top, this is going to fill out sections 1 through 8 of that 1354. The middle section, all of this information right here, is going to fill out sections 24 through 26, and this bottom section is going to fill out 9 through 23. Now, once you've filled out all of this information, I'm just going to randomly put in some information here. And then we'll do the primary transfer type. What you choose for this particular transfer is going to be dependent on what it is that's being transferred, district policies, and the contract itself. In this case, I'm going to put this one as a draft because I'm not quite finished with this. For the transfers by signature, you can actually select that by clicking this box here to bring up the staff lookup in order to find a specific person. Now, the information is populated based off of your district. We have a lot of test users, so as you can see, there's some information that you probably won't see in yours. But if you want to be able to find someone easily, I recommend using the search box over here to make it so that way you can find something faster without having to try and search through quite a few number of different people. And then you can add their title and who accepted it and their title, any voucher numbers. The next thing is this one down here. This property items is very important. This is why the real property module needed to be filled out first, because if you don't have the real property module filled out first, you will not be able to add items here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that by clicking on this add button. And what you will see is when I add this, the order numbers are all 0 if you have imported the real property from the import-export. That is okay. We can modify that as soon as we've added it to our DD1354, and I'll show you how to do that one. This is also the way that you can easily reorganize what order those properties show up on the actual DD1354. So I'm going to go ahead and add this one, and then I'm going to add another one so that way you can see, and I'm going to add all 3. Now, I want to make sure that this one is the third one, this is the first one, and this is the second one. But as it stands right now, because of the order that I added in, this is what it's going to show up when you look at the form right now. So let me pull that up and show you. As you see, it does actually assign numbers when it comes in here, but those numbers are not the same as what's on the other one, and it's not in the order that I want it to be in. So I want to change that, so I'm going to close that. And I want this one to be first, so I'm going to double click on this to open it up. And over here, now I have this order number. This is the one that I want as 1, so I'm going to hit that as a 1, and I'm going to tab, and then I'm going to hit the back button to save that. And as you will see, it is now number 1, and I'm going to do this as number 2. So I'm going to double click on that, change this for number 2, and hit the back button, and then do the same thing for number 3. And add the 3 on here, and then hit the back button to save that. And then as you can see, you now have 1, 2, and 3. Now, if you accidentally put something with the same order number, that is okay, because when it comes into the report, as you saw when I showed you before, the numbers are going to show up correctly. You're not going to have 2, 2 showing up on the form because the form is filled out based off of what order it's entered in that last stage. And as you can see, the numbers have been reorganized, and now it's the order that I want it to be in. So I'm happy with that. So I'm going to close that and continue filling on the next item. Once you have finished filling out this tab, then you can come over here to the Deficiencies tab. Now, deficiencies are all coming from your QA/QC reports where you're reporting the deficiencies. So if you have not added a deficiency in the QA/Q reports, they're not going to show here, but all of the QA/QC report deficiencies will show up here. You just click on this Add button. And for this contract, I only have 2 deficiencies that I have added. Yours will probably have a whole lot more, and mine specifically are the QA ones. So I'm just going to choose this Mech Room 1 and add OK. If any information is going to be for this deficiency, you can click on the deficiency, and as you see down here, what was entered in the deficiency itself is going to show up down here in this gray box. If you have any other information that you need to add, you can click in this box down here to add that information. If what you're adding is bigger than this information, you want to see a bigger box, you can click on this lovely little box right here, and that will bring up a bigger text box where you can add more text My goodness, I cannot type today. More text as needed. Or if you just want to make it bigger, you can also click on that so that way you can show it. And then when you click OK, it will show up in this text box. Once that is done, you can come over to the Remarks tab. Enter the project description. If there were any planning and design costs that were not included in the construction costs, you can add that here. If there were any S&A costs, you can add those here. And if you had any extra equipment costs that needs to be added, you can add those ones here. And then it will update these as you go along. Now, once you have realized, or once you have gone through and added all of the information, then you can go back and double check and make sure everything is correct. Once you have seen that everything is correct, go ahead and open up your Form 1354 one more time and go through and verify that everything you needed to add was on there. So here are your deficiencies, here are the extra remarks, here's the name of who was transferred by, the real property that was added, and the top with the address information showing up in here, and what type was added to it. Now at this point, you're going to want to go ahead and save this document as long as you have verified that everything is correct. So you're going to come over here and click on the Save button. I would recommend using the Adobe Acrobat because this is going to be a PDF file, so save it as Acrobat. You can just say OK on these. You don't need to make any changes to any of these options. And then it's going to ask you where do you want to save it, and then you will have to give it a name. Does this include the QC deficiencies? I do believe that, yes, it does include the QC deficiencies, but this contract does not have any QC deficiencies on it. Okay, so let's see. This one is the real property Closeout Training 2021-1. And if you have more than one for the particular contract that you're doing, I would add like a -1 or a -2, depending on your district policy on how they want the documents named. And you can also add the date in which you actually did that. So today is the 24th. So we have the date that I created this document, the name of the document, and the document title, and which version it happens to be. And then you can decide where you want to save it. I'm actually going to leave it in here. And I'm going to choose the Save button. Now, once it is saved, you can go ahead and close this document and go back over to this module. And if you need this document to go to PCF, there are one of two ways that you can do that. You can add it to this document package down here at the bottom, or you can manually put it in PCF. So I'm going to show you how to do it by adding it to this document package by clicking the Add button. Okay. Now from here, I also need to click this Add button, and I'm going to choose Add from File System. And then I'm going to navigate to the file that I just saved, which was 2021-0421 Real Property right here, and choose Open. And it's going to add the document to the document package. Now, at this point, if you need to sign the document, then you can go ahead and click on this Sign Selected Documents over here. Or if it does not need to be signed and you're ready for this to go to PCF, you can click on Complete Package. Now, it is very important if you want this document to go to PCF that you click on this Complete Package down here at the bottom. If you do not click on this Complete Package, then the document will not be sent to PCF. So remember, click on this package. Now, if you don't sign the document, it's going to warn you after it says, are you sure you want to complete this? Yes, I do. And it's, well, I guess this particular document package doesn't warn you, but most other document packages will warn you if the document hasn't been signed. If this one is needing to be signed one way or the other, that's dependent on the district policy as well as the contract. So I would consult with those to find out if you need to have it signed or not. Now, the type, does the contractor have the ability to complete? Not at this time. At this time, the contractor does not have access to the Form 1354, though that is in the process of being added to RMS, but we do not have an ETA as to when that will be released at this time. Okay, Now that that's done, one thing to note about the document packages. This will tell you the type of files that are allowed for adding to the document package. You can add PDF files, image files. It doesn't just have to be JPEG. It can also be PNG. Word documents, text files, Excel files, CSV files, PowerPoints, and emails are all accepted. The only thing that we are not accepting at this time, well, not the only thing, but one of the only things that we're not accepting is video files. We do not accept video files at this time, as there is a limit of 250 megabytes for each attachment that you add. You can add as many attachments to the document package as you want, but you must limit each attachment to 250 megabytes, as anything bigger than that will be too big, and we do not want to overload the system. So now that that is done, I'm going to go ahead and click the back button. And then now that I'm finished with this one, I'm going to click back again. And as you can see, now I have two transfers forms for the DD1354. Excuse me. All right. So then the next thing, yes, that is actually where I'm going to right now, Mr. Sin. We are going to talk about the Requisition DD1149, and we're going to open this one up. This is fairly similar to the last one. Again, you're going to click on the Add button. The biggest difference between these two is, of course, they're different forms. You can always view the form here whenever you want at any point in time, and then fill out all of this information. Now, for this form, let me go ahead and pull this one up. This is a single page form, and a lot of the information is found on the first tab. So let's go ahead and go over that. This right here, let me see, make sure I get this correct. Sections 1 through 15 are filled out from this area right here, with the exception of section 4. Section 4 is going to be the information that you fill out in this appropriations data area down here at the bottom. So you'll fill out all of the shipping information that you need, any other documents or information that needs to go with that on this side, and then the appropriations documents. How to fill this out will be dependent on your district's policy, so I would check with them to find out what the standards are for how this is entered and information to be putting in for there. The next thing you need is the transfers property title. Now, for transfers properties, those are entered by the contractor in the QC reports under the QC requirements. So if the contractor has been adding their transferred properties, then you'll be able to come in here and click on this Add button, and you will see the properties show up in this property lookup list. If there are more properties, then you can always use this search button in order to be able to find a specific one to narrow down the results if there are a lot of transferred properties. But I only have the one. I'm not sure why you didn't see that. It popped up on my screen. Gerald's saying he didn't see Mr. Sin's message, but it popped up on my screen. So now that that's been added on here, what I can do is I'm going to add just some information. And when you're adding the address, think of this as address 1, city, and zip code, because you do want to make sure that you have a zip code in your form, because the form specifically says that it needs to have a zip code added on it. Some road, some city. And this, I'm only putting this information in so that way you can see it when we open up the form. So we've got this one here, and if you need to fill out all of that information, let's put in some dates. Now, for these dates, one of the things that's nice about this is it makes it easy to find a date. But if you want something a year in advance, you don't want to have to use these little arrow buttons and click 12 times in order to find it. So you can just click on the title of the month and year. And then if that's not the year that you want, you can click on the year. And as you can see, it changes so that way you can decide, okay, well, then I'm not going to ship it until 2022, and I'm not going to ship it until January, and it's going to be shipped on this day. So that way you can easily find the number. And of course, you can also just hand type it in there if you would also like to. So 2/2/2022. Well, no, 21, because we required it. It needs to be a back date. Okay. So now that you've filled that out and you verified that information is correct and this information has been correct, we're going to go ahead and open up this Form 1149. Now, once this is open, as you can see, you have your address from who it's going to, who it's coming from, all of the dates that we have added, and here is your transfer property right here. Now, once you verify that this information is correct and everything is on here as it needs, you're going to click on the Save button, just as you did before, and you're going to choose the Adobe Acrobat option, and you're going to ignore all of this stuff and just tell it OK, and then you're going to add a name to this one. In this case, this is going to be, let's see, today's date, which is the 21st, and this is my DD1149. Oops, I didn't mean to do that one. I like adding capitals, so I'm going to add my capital back in there. And then this is for Closeout Training 2021 because that's the name of my contract. And then if I have more than one, I'm going to add the -1 just in case I might have another one. So I'm going to click on Save. Now, once that's done, you can click on this Close button. And as you see, this one doesn't have a document package, but say you want this one to go to PCF, you have two options for doing that. You can either manually load it into PCF, which means then you have to go searching PCF to make sure you put it in the right place, or you can do that in the contract file of RMS. So from here, this is already saved into RMS, but I see I have a refresh going on, so I'm going to click the back button to make sure it's saved properly like it's supposed to. And now I'm going to click on this contract menu to go back to the main menu of the contract. I'm going to come over to the Administration tab, and then I'm going to come to the Contract File module. From here, this is where you can load any documents that you need that were not already put in a document package somewhere else in RMS. Specifically, I want the closeout documents. So if you have a lot of information in here, you can always use a search here, but I'm adding instead of looking for a specific file, so I need to choose Add first. And then once you get an add, here's your lookup. And as you see, there's a lot of information in here. And I want to narrow this down, so I'm going to type in the word closeout here, if I can spell. There we go. Now, at this point, you have a couple of options to choose from for where to save this. You can put it in a checklist. So if you guys have a checklist, this is where it's coming from. A release of claims, the red zone meetings, the initial 1354, the final 1354, the miscellaneous closeout documents, and the closeout documents. Now, for RMS purposes, there is absolutely no difference between these two because when it is sent to PCF, it's going to be sent the same way, whether you put it in the miscellaneous closeout documents or you put it in the closeout documents. For now, I'm actually just going to put it in the miscellaneous closeout documents. So I'm going to choose that and click OK. Once I've done that, it's opening up this page to allow me to add documents to this particular file. Now, you have two options at this point. You can either generate a document, which this is for documents that are pre-written in the district library. If you want to use some of those ones, you can click on that one. In this case, I don't need to because I've saved the document to my file. So I'm going to choose Select Document, and it's going to ask me where that document is. So I'm looking for today's date and the DD1149 closeout, so that way I know which one it is. Now, I'm going to click on Open. And it's going to go ahead and save it on here. At this point, what I can do is I can either remove the document if I realize that that's the wrong one by looking at the name. I can view it just to verify that I actually did grab the name one. And I can save it again if I need to. Also, I can sign it if I need to do that as well. It's important that you put the date of the document in here. And because this is not done in a document package, you will actually have to fill this information out. However, if it was done in a document package, you don't really need to worry about doing the dates because that's done automatically for you. And in this case, you need to add a description, DD1149 for transfers from contract. And once you have verified that all of this information is correct, I would highly recommend you choose this view This is the message that you will get before it opens up, and mine is opening up on the other screen. It's taking it just a few minutes, and once it's done, there we go. Bring this over here. As you can see, it is pulled up, and it is exactly what I want it to be. I verified it. I'm happy, so I'm going to go ahead and close that. And you can cancel that or wait. It'll go away on its own. And then once you have verified that, you're going to go ahead and, if you need to sign it, depending on your district policy, you can go ahead and sign it by clicking on this Sign Document. And at this point, this looks familiar if you've done any signing of other stuff, because it's the same thing. You just click on this document, you'll choose Next. If you want to add a signature title, then you can type that in here. If you want to choose the signature title that is in your district already, you can click on this lookup button to find any signature blocks that you have associated with your record. I don't have any for this particular user, so nothing is showing up. If you think you should have a signature block in here and you're not seeing it, you'll need to contact your district administrator and have them check out your staff record and make sure the signature block is showing up in the staff record. And once it is showing up in the staff record, then you'll be able to see it here. And once you've chosen that, click OK, and then click Cancel because there's nothing in there. And if you decide that you want to use this one in the future, you just check on this box, and then every time you open up one, it's going to show up in here. If you want to change it for the one time and only want to use it, then you can uncheck this box, and the next time it's not going to show up there. Now, for the location, if you want to change the location, you double-click in this box here for the ellipses button. Click on the ellipses button, and then you'll want to know where to sign it. In this case, I believe it's the first page, bottom left, and where it's signed is going to depend, and what shows up in here is going to depend on how the district has those set up in the system library. Once you have chosen the location, you're going to click on the Finish button, and it's going to ask for your verification. Let me bring that over. Now, sometimes if it's been within, I'm not sure if it's 10 minutes, 20 minutes, depending on your Active Directory. If it's been within like 10 minutes of putting in your PIN, it won't necessarily ask for your PIN again. However, if you're logged in with a username and password, it's going to ask for your password every single time. So just be aware of that. If it doesn't ask for your PIN, you're like, wait a minute, why didn't it ask for my PIN? More than likely, it's because the Active Directory already saw that you signed in within the last 10 to 15 minutes, so it's already verified you and it's good to go. Once you have done that, now you can click on this Completed button. You want to make sure you click on this if you want this to go to PCF. And then, again, if you want it to go to PCF, you must click the Send to PCF button. Once you have done that, it's going to ask for verification. It wants to know who is sending the file to PCF so that there is a record of that. Again, if you're using an email username and password when you log into RMS, it's going to ask you for your password. Otherwise, it's going to ask you for your PIN. Now, I did just use my PIN, so it may not ask me for my PIN. Yep, nope, it did not, because my Active Directory is already showing that I had entered it just a few minutes ago. Now this document has been entered in the contract file, and it will be sent to PCF. The one thing to note about sending to PCF, let's go ahead and back up so you can see what that looks like. Let's see, this is the one that I just sent, and it says ready to send to PCF. So what you're going to notice is sometimes it might be a few days before this changes from ready to send to PCF to accepted in PCF. That is because in order to send things to PCF, we do what's called a batch process. And what happens is every district has to be able to send documents to PCF, and we can't do all of that at one time. So we go district by district, and so many are sent per district, and it's going to go through all of the different districts, and once it's sent the limit, it's going to go to the next district until it gets to the end, and then it's going to cycle back and start all over again. What that means is if every district has the maximum number of documents that need to be sent, it could be anywhere from 24 to 72 hours before your documents change from ready to send to PCF to accepted in PCF. So keep that in mind when you're looking at that. That being said, if it has been more than 72 hours since you have sent the document and it's still saying ready to send to PCF, please contact the HelpDesk Support Center so that way we can double check and make sure that something else isn't going on at that point. Also, keep in mind that the districts are responsible for the cabinets in PCF. If any of the documents come back with error messages because the documents haven't been updated, you will need to contact PCF support and make sure that they have all of the cabinets set up correctly in the district, so that way when it does get sent, you will be able to send it on there and you don't have to manually go in there and actually send and put it in there yourself. And this is because of bandwidth limitations. That actually brings me to one of the new things that we had, just as a quick side note. We are now allowing documents that have contract numbers with GSA type contract numbers to be sent to PCF. This is because if we know that sending a document to PCF is going to return with an error, we're not going to send it. So in the past, GSA document numbers, contract numbers were not accepted in PCF. So we did not send those to PCF to make sure that we didn't overload the bandwidth so that way everybody could get on the system without having too many downtimes because of overloading the system. But GSA contracts are now allowed to be sent to PCF. So if you have a GSA contract, you can now send those documents to PCF within RMS. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back over to the closeout section. So we have talked about the real property, the DD1354 and the 1149. Let's see, we are still doing pretty good on time. So the next thing is the CPAR evaluations. If you are required to evaluate the contractor for any particular reason for the contract, this is where you can enter that information. So when you open up the module, if you need to add any kind of performance evaluation, you'll click on this add button, and then it's going to ask you to fill out all of the information that is here. You'll fill out all of these tabs, the name and the address, the contractor information, the miscellaneous information, small business, any ratings, any assessors. And let me show you the one that I've already filled out. And we've already got some information in here. If you need to change the program type, you can click on this the blue box and search for the specific program type that you're looking for and select what you're looking. Let's see if this was for security. And then select that and then choose OK. That way you can change that. This information is all pulled from the contract, this one, and this one is pulled from the contract description. So if you need to change that information, you'll have to go to the administration tab in contract description in order to change that. I can show you how to change that really fast. Going to contract menu, administration, contract description. So this is where the office is changed. You have to click on this box to look up the offices that are available for your district. And then, as you see, it's been changed, and then you can change any of the other information that you need to change in here so that way it shows as it's supposed to be showing for that particular one. So I'm going to, now that one's complaining because I have a different type of contract number. If you notice here, let me show you what. This is not a typical number. This is just something that I came up with off the cuff, so that's why it's complaining about this one. The other thing is I've excluded this district from placement calculations, and I have not given the home district EROC because this is a training contract. So, yes, Douglas Saver, thank you. One thing to note, do not change your contract number, because if you change the contract number here and it does not agree with what's in CFMS, you could have some issues with your contract. So you want to make sure that the contract number is exactly the same in CFMS. So if it's changed in CFMS, that is the only time that you will change the contract number in RMS. If it is not changed in CFMS, do not change this contract number. Same thing with the delivery order number. These two must be the same as what shows up in CFMS. If they are different by even a little bit, a space or a dash or no dash or a slash, then when you try to import information, your finances especially, you're not going to get that, and it could cause some delay in getting things completed. So keep that in mind when you are working in the contract description. Do not change this contract number or the delivery order number unless directed by someone else in the district. Okay, so now let me go back over here, and I'm going to cancel changes and exit, and then coming back to the Closeout tab, in the evaluation, the contractor performance evaluation, you can export this information. So once you've opened it and you've completed all of the information, you've given the ratings, and you've filled out everything that needs to be filled out, you can export that file by clicking on this Export CPARs button up here. And what that's going to do is it's going to export it as a TXT file. Now, if it's imported into another program as a TXT file, I think that's dependent upon the district, but if you need to send it to PCF, you can again do that in RMS through the contract file, the same way that we just did some of the other information. Okay, the next thing that I'm going to really quickly talk about is the warranty tracking. This is one of the few things that the contractor actually has the ability to do some of this stuff. Something to note, James did remind me to let you know that if you have spaces at the end of the contract number in, here, let me pull that up really fast. In the contract description, if you have extra spaces here, like this, that's going to break it for CFMs as well. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Make sure that there are no extra spaces showing up in this contract number. So don't accidentally click in here and then push this and be like, oh, okay, that's fine. It's still the same number. I can click out of it. No, we do not want to see that, because now, as you see, when I highlight it, I've got this extra space in here. So just make sure that you don't accidentally do that, because that will also break the connection to CFMs as well. Yes, RMS does not perform a trim on your data. We want to make sure we get everything in there as correct as possible, so there is no trim being performed on that one. All right, so for the warranties, anytime you need to have a warranty on any of the facilities that are built by the contractor, you can do that here in the warranty tracking section. Now, this is government mode. Government mode has the option to see the facility items, the warranty items, and the warranty inspections. The contractor, however, can only see warranty items and warranty inspections. Let me show you what the contractor sees by pulling up that contract. Now, notice the difference. When I'm logging in here, my buttons, my navigation buttons up at the top are gold, whereas in government mode, they are blue. So you'll know what you're working in based off of the color of your navigation screens. So keep that in mind if you are working, if you are looking at different screenshots, or if you're looking at different videos for things like that, that's the difference that will indicate whether or not you're using contractor mode or government mode. My apologies. So for the contractor mode, they can come over here into Closeout, and as you can see, the only thing they have is warranty tracking. And then when they click on the warranty tracking, they can only see the warranty items and the warranty inspections. Now, for them to be able to enter warranty items and warranty inspections, the government must first enter the facility items. So for Lisa, yes, you can export the CSPARs, but we do not have a link with CSPARs. So it exports as a TXT file. And let me go back and show you that really fast. So in the CSPARs, after you filled out the information, open it up, you'll click on this Export CSPARs here, and it's a TXT file. It'll only export to your actual computer, and at which point then you would need to import it into CPARs. You're welcome. Okay, so back to warranty tracking and facility items. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to add a facility to this. Actually, you know what? Let me just delete these facilities. Let's just say these were wrong. Before I do that, however, I'm also going to delete everything out of here. And I'm only doing this so that way you guys can see what it'll look like for the contractor when they come back and say, I'm sorry, I can't do that, after you have asked them. Let's hope if I hit the right button now. And of course, anytime you delete something, RMS is going to warn you that something has been deleted. So let's just delete this one and this one. All right, now I'm going to come over here to the contractor and I'm going to refresh the screen. Notice everything is removed. Now, you tell the contractor you need to add warranty items for this stuff, and they say, okay, I'm going to add some warranty items. They're going to come over to the warranty items, and they're going to click on the add, and they're going to get this error message. No facility items have been created. The government can add facility items. And they're going to contact you, and they're going to say, I can't add my warranty items. It says I need to add facilities first. How do I do that? They can't. So what's going to happen is you're going to come in here to the Facility Items tab, and you're going to choose the Add option. When you do that, if your contract has more than one phase, you'll need to make sure that you choose the appropriate phase that is associated with the particular facility that you're adding, and then click OK. Next, you're going to add the short title as well as the start date. Now, the short title is editable later. So if you end up in typing in the wrong thing here, that's okay. As soon as it opens up to the next page, you'll be good. The warranty start date, this is going to depend on the contract, the district policy, and a few other things. If it's the completion of the actual construction phase, or if it's the acceptance of the government, that is based off of the district policy, and you'll need to consult with your representatives to find out what that happens to be. So in this case, the warranty start date, I'm just going to say is the 14th, and choose OK. And then it's going to open up my edit field. And this is where I can add the long title, some test building, and then some test building because I entered the wrong information before, and then I can enter the description. This is a new building that requires a warranty. Okay. And then we already entered the start date, but if we want to change this, we can go ahead and change this here. And then the duration is automatically set to 12, and this is based off of months, so it's going to be 12 months, in which case it will calculate the end date based off of when you put the start date as well as whatever the duration of the warranty is. Once you've done that, you need to add buildings to it. You're going to click on this Add button. And then you're just going to add the building number or building name. And this is going to be DTG-65. And click OK. If you need to add any other buildings to that, you can go ahead and do so at this time. Otherwise, click the back button to save it. And what you may notice is even though you added the description and the warranty end, it's not really going to show up here all of the time. If that happens, just click on this refresh button and you'll be able to see any changes and updates made at this point in time. Now, since you have added the facility, the contractor can then come over to their side of it. They'll need to hit the refresh button to make sure they have the most recent information, and then they can click on this add, and there is their facility item.
Can we add pictures or photo?
For the buildings?
Yeah, for example, if something's bad, for example, saying that you have got two HVAC, you want to take a picture of that HVAC you wanted, and you take that picture and add it.
Yes, okay, so kind of. You can definitely take those pictures and add it. You won't be able to put it here in this facility, but you will be able to add it when it's in the warranty inspection, because there is a document package inside the warranty inspections, in which case you can definitely do that one. Okay. So once, and I'll go ahead and show you that here in just a second. Now, the government or the contractor can enter the warranty items and the inspection items. So after the facility is added and the contractor needs to go through and add the warranty items, they're going to choose the facility that it's going to. They're going to click OK, and then it's going to be set up in review. Now, if they need to add any more information, they just double click on it and they can add a description. They can't add the government remarks because they're not the government. The government has to be able to add those. They can change the location. They can set the status of whatever the warranty happens to be. And then they can set these little bits of information for the performance so that way we can do that. But I think the government's probably going to want to also change that as well. So I'm going to go ahead and click back to save my changes. Let me add a location. Now, these are locations that are already set in the system, so it's not going to give you a map. You have to choose a pre-saved location that's already been saved in the district. And then any district, so this is. So we're going to say damaged building only because of the example before, so that's going to remind me I want to talk about that later. And then I'm going to click the back button, and it's going to show up in here. Now I can add the warranty inspection for the same thing, and in this case, it's going to be the warranty title. I'm just using the same one as before. And click OK. Now, in here, again, this can also be done in the government mode, and the view is exactly the same. They'll put in the information for if there are inspections that are needed for this one. Now, this is the document packages that you can use in order to add those pictures of any damage that was done to any of the facilities. And then, of course, you can add the remarks. Also, noticed damage to sidewall or whatever it happens to be. Take the pictures, and then you can add those here. And I'll show that in just a second. Once they add the title, they need the warranty start date. Let's see, they finished building this one back on March, and it's good for about a year. So I don't want to double click on this 12 times, so I'm going to click here, and I'm going to click on the year. It's going to be 2020, and it was March, and I chose the first, so that gives me exactly a year. Now, for the inspections, it's defaulted to be 4 months and 9 months. However, these can be changed. So if it needs to be 6 months and 12 months, then you can go ahead and change these dates according to that to make sure that that information goes through. When you're ready to add any pictures to this particular document package, you're going to click on this Add button. Yes, and you should be able to type that in as well. And then you can add and then choose from file system. Now, I don't believe, I do have some images. So this is going to be an image that I'm going to add to the document. And all of this stuff is just pictures that I need to add because of what we found when we did the inspection. So I'm going to add these 2 pictures here. And then once they're loaded, if you need to sign them, you can go ahead and choose Sign Selected Document. If not, then the contractor needs to make sure they click on this Submit for Review button. But let's just assume that they didn't actually do that. So they just added their pictures and they hit the back button and back button again to save. And the government is going to come over here, go to the warranty inspection. You'll need to refresh because you need to make sure we have the latest data. And then we're going to open up this warranty title, and we're going to see here this document package is showing is not complete. That's okay because we can go ahead and complete it for them. So we'll double click on this one to open it up, and we'll go ahead and click on Submit for Review. When this happens, the contractor is no longer going to be able to edit anything in this particular document package. They can't add, they can't delete, they can't change anything in this document package. And you'll notice with this one does tell me, there's nothing signed in here. Are you sure you want to proceed? And I'm like, yes, because these are pictures. They don't need to be signed, so it's okay. Now, at this point, I've gotten all of this information in, and I want to get this stuff sent to PCF to make sure we have this in record. Then what I need to make sure I do is I click on this Accept Package. Again, if you do not click on this Accept Package, what's going to happen is it's going to sit there in RMS, and it's never going to be sent to PCF, so make sure you click on this button. Now, if you notice that either pictures are missing or it's the wrong picture, it's the wrong file, then you will need to click on this Return for Corrections for the contractor to add more stuff to it or delete a file and add a different file if that happens to be the case. Okay. So then, when that is done, you can click on the back button. Now, for these dates, let's just say that the second inspection wasn't 9 months, it's 12 months. So we're going from needs to be this date. So I'm just going to type in 3/1/2022, and then that will update correctly. So that way you can go ahead and take care of that. Now, say you only need one inspection, you don't need both of them. Then you can just uncheck this box, and that information will no longer be displayed. Or you can go ahead and check this box. Once the inspection has been complete, go ahead and check this box just to note that it's done. And you'll notice here that the document package is still showing status of in review. What that means is it's not yet been accepted and hasn't been sent to PCF. So if it needs to go, double click on it to open it up. And again, click on this accept package. And it's going to say, but there's nothing been signed. It's okay, I don't need anything to be signed. So, and as you see, these changed from ready to send to PCF now. And then over here, it shows as accepted. Okay, now clicking the back button, and one more time. The last thing that's in this area is this Closeout Documents module. This has actually been replaced with the Contract File module under the administration, so this one's not used at this time. If you click on it, it will tell you to please add it to the contract file, which is what we did earlier, which is over here under administration and contract file. Okay, and that pretty much concludes what we're going to be talking about for the closeout section. There were a couple of questions from users prior to the training, and I'm going to really quickly go over a few of those. The first one was for the funding sources, and those ones, let's pull this up really fast. Oh, wait, wrong one, real properties. The question was, how to enter custom information in the following fields: funding source 1, interest code, and real property. The answer is, at this time, you cannot. You only have the options of what's being chosen right here. So at this time, if there are any other things that you need to put in here that are not showing up, the funding source is not correct, or something else needs to be in there, that's not the option at this point in time. So you can just leave these ones blank, not choosing anything, and then you can edit the PDF file if you need to using Adobe, I think Sign and Fill actually is it's free on your phone anyways. And you can just fill in the information as necessary as you need to if that is the case, because at this time RMS doesn't have the ability to actually choose anything other than this, because as I said, this information is hard-coded into the system at this time. The other question was how to add multiple real property assets simultaneously to a DD1354. Unfortunately, at this time, that's not possible. You do actually have to add those individually one at a time by using this add button down here. Because every time you open it up, it's going to add it. I don't have any more to choose from. So, but it's going to bring it up here so that way you can edit the information if you need to. So that's why at this time it does not do that. Okay, and then that pretty much concludes the questions that most of the users had sent. Terry, do you want me to go ahead and quickly show how to multi-sign the QA reports, or would you like us to go over some contract setup, or do you want to do a Q&A session right now?
I'll leave it up to the folks on the phone. Do y'all want to see how to sign multiple QA reports at one time, or do y'all want to go on to the QA session? Yes. Okay. Go ahead, Jennifer, and show the...
All right. Multi-signing QA reports. Okay. So we all know that we sometimes don't have time to sign everything that we want to. Let's see. I need to bring, I believe this is the contract that I need for that. And there are times where you're going to have a lot of QA reports and they just have to kind of sit there for a few minutes until you get to the point where you'll be able to have more than one that need to be signed at a time. It could be possible that you end up having like 20, 50 or more that need to be signed at a time. That's a lot to be going into every single one of them and clicking on this report complete and going into the document package and signing it. So one of the things that we have added is the ability to multi-sign some QA reports. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. I'm just going to randomly add a couple of QA reports to this particular one, so that way you can see what the process looks like when you are multi-signing. The only thing that you need to make sure on your QA reports that must be done before you can multi-sign is that the weather has been set. As long as the weather has been set, then you can multi-sign your daily reports. So everything else that needs to be filled out is on the district policy, and what needs to be filled out is going to be determined by that. So you'll have to contact with whoever regulates district policy to find out what else needs to be filled out for the QA report. But for the multi-signing, in the QA module, you're going to come over here and click on this multi-sign daily reports. And what you will see is all of the daily reports that have not been signed by the QA representative will show up in this list. There are two sort boxes up here, one for the documents to show that the QA report hasn't signed, and one for the project engineer that has to sign. Now, what you will see is the QA rep is showing that 2 have not been signed, but the project engineer is showing 0. That's because in order for the project engineer to sign, the QA rep must first sign. So the first thing to do is make sure that you are selected with the QA rep, and then you're going to select all of the documents that you wish to sign. You can check this box if you want all of them, or you can just check a specific one if you only want a specific one, and then click on this Sign as QA Rep button up here. Okay. Now, once you've done that, it's going to bring up a document viewer, and this is just a preview of all of the reports with all of the information that's in them. There are going to be no signatures on this. That's just going to be the information that you entered into the QA report showing, so that you can go through and verify, okay, yes, that information is correct, yes, that information is correct. And then if everything is correct, you're going to click on yes. If it's not, you're going to click on no and go back to whichever report was not correct and correct that information, or you can just uncheck that particular report and select it. So once you do yes, it's going to ask you for your pen. I'm going to bring it over here. And you're going to enter your pen to sign the documents, and it's going to go through and it's going to sign all of them. Depending on how many reports you are trying to sign, as well as depending on how many, what your internet connection is for the day and the internet traffic at the day, will depend on how long this takes. Usually it's only a minute or two, if that. Now, if you're signing a lot of them, it could take a little bit longer. Now what you see is the QA rep is showing a 0, and there's nothing showing up in our box. And the signed project engineer report has 2. So I'm going to click on this box to show the ones that need to be signed by the project engineer. And as you can see, it is no longer available to sign this QA rep. The only option is to sign as the project engineer. Again, you need to select the documents that you wish to sign. I'm only actually going to sign one of them because for some reason, I don't think I'm ready to sign this one. And you can do that if you so desire. And then just click on this Sign as Project Engineer. And it's going to go through and it's going to do the same thing. Again, it's going to show you a preview of what it looks like. And again, you're not going to have any of the signatures, including the QA representative signature. It's not going to show in this preview. Now, you do have the option of printing and saving these documents if you wish to review them on paper, or if you want to have a copy on your computer as well, you can do that here. Otherwise, choose yes if you want to save, and it's going to, again, ask you for your pen. It's not going to ask me for mine because I just put it in just a couple of seconds ago, so it's going to go through and it's going to sign the report. And then it's going to remove the one that I chose for it to sign off of my list, and it's going to be signed. Now, one of the things that you will note is if you have a QA report that you know you checked and you know you said you signed it, but it still shows up in here after the signing process, what that means is there were 2 document packages inside that QA report. So if you want to make sure both document packages get sent to PCF, you'll need to do another signing through that one more time. And then, again, it's the same thing. You just take a look and sign as engineer, and it's going to bring up the preview, and then you're going to click on yes after you've verified that all of the information is correct. And it's going to go through and save all of that. And then once it's done, It'll take a few minutes apparently. There we go. You can click on the back button, and now you can see that it's been accepted and transferred to PCF for these 2 reports that I went ahead and did. Now, this one has just been completed and received by the government, but this one was done outside of the multi-sign, which shows up as the fact that it's completed versus accepted and transferred to PCF. So it probably needs, yeah, this one's good to go. Okay, let's see. I do believe that's it for starting of the QA reports. And we've already talked about some of the other ones. So we can either open it up for Q&A, or we can have a short little presentation about the contract setup. So for the audience, would you like to go ahead and open it up for Q&A, or do you want to see some about the contract setup?
Contract setup.
Okay, that means, James, it's for you to go ahead and do a brief
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Great. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yep.
Super. All right. So we got about 15 minutes. Maybe we can go through some contract setup issues. In the administration button, there is the contract setup. Let me slow down just a little bit for some of you who have delayed screens. So the administration button on the left and the contract setup is on the second column, second one down. The contract setup includes setup options for your contract that you want to set up. Only administrators for the contract should have access and ability to be able to change these things. A bunch of these options are at the very top. You can use CFMs for downloading finances. That's normally checked, except for contracts where you will not be interfacing with CFMs. Some foreign contracts, for example, will be paid for by the local government, and they will not interface with CFMs. The CFMs district is mentioned off to the right. In this case, we have the Walla Walla district for training just selected for this contract. That means that this contract will download from the CFMS database in Walla Walla district. You can actually interface with a CFMS database from any district. So if, for example, you are working in an Albuquerque district, you could actually access Los Angeles district CFMS. Sometimes contracts will span across districts. We've had the question before where can we actually create the project or contract in another district and use the CFMS from the first district? And yes, you can. Will this contract be linked to P2? This contract can be selected to work with P2. If you choose to work with P2, then you're going to want to put in the P2 projects in P2 first and then download them. Prior to award, the only milestones that are available to RMS would be the award milestones. Once you enter the award milestone, then you can enter in all the other milestones. And that's what this second checkbox is for. If you are using P2 projects and you want to enter in the milestones into RMS, prior to award, you can uncheck this box, and that will allow you to enter the milestones prior to award. So once there is an actual award, then you can enter it at all times. But if you have this box checked, you will not be able to enter any milestones into RMS. They have to be entered into P2 and downloaded from P2. And then there is use only one phase. Now, in order to enter this P2 project, you need to go to that third column in the P2 projects download screen here. This P2 projects, you can add projects to your contract right here. These contracts will only be available to you when they are set up into P2 properly. Normally, what we tell them is to copy a methodology in P2. That way all the RMS codes are set and those projects are available to RMS. There are several things that need to be set within P2 in order for these to be available to RMS. The status needs to be active. You also need a target cost of greater than 1 cent. It has been slated by design that if 1 cent or less target cost is on these projects, they will not be available. You will not be able to see them in RMS, so you cannot link to them. So if you're asking the question, why are my P2 projects not showing up, it may be because the RMS A codes are not set for this project and the tasks. It may also be that 1 cent or greater than 1 cent is not set for the target cost for your P2 project as well. Now, once you select a P2 project, you can click the project there and click the OK button. It will actually link that P2 project up to your contract. And you can add multiple P2 projects to your contract. You will link them and set things in RMS with these P2 projects, and they will be available once that is linked to your contract. So you can select the contract finances, for example, go into the contract funding, and now for the funding for your contract, you can actually select the P2 project that is assigned to this funding account. If there's only one, then that will automatically be selected. If you have multiple P2 projects, you can select the particular P2 project that you want to assign to that funding account, and each funding account can have its own separate P2 project task code assigned to it. Now, one other thing that I want to show you is with the P2 projects, if you have more than one P2 project in this contract, it will create separate phases in RMS to correspond to the WBS band, work breakdown structure bands in P2. So I have two P2 projects linked up to this contract. So if I go out and I go into milestone schedules, say for example, you'll notice that at the top of the screen I haven't named these phases yet, you can actually name these, but I have two separate phases, which are two separate sets of milestones. So if I assigned an award date in one of the phases, it would not be assigned also in the second phase. And you would need to select that second phase to set the milestones for that phase. If you wanted to combine all of those phases into one, you have multiple P2 projects, and you say, I only want one phase, then you would check this checkbox in contract setup to use only one phase. When you select that option, then you would go out into the milestone schedule, and you will only have one phase. So the drop-down box up above to select the phase is now gone because you're using one phase for all P2 projects. Back to the contract setup screen. Another option is to allow government to enter contract data. We strongly discourage leaving this set. What this allows is on certain screens, the government can actually go in and assist the contractor and enter some of the contractor's data and help them with some of their screens. Another way to do that is to, with permission of the contractor, go in and add yourself as a subcontractor on the contractor prime screen. I'll show you how to do that here. You can actually add yourself as a staff here, and then you will have the ability to log in to RMS contractor mode and edit the contract and see the screens that the contractor would see and help them with their issue. Once you get done with that, you'll want to go back and uncheck this Allow Government to Enter Contractor Data. If you want to track contractor insurance, payrolls, labor interviews, and if you require a DD 1354 document, those settings are also selected. Now, another option that people may not be aware of is there is a Send Documents to PCF checkbox for this contract. If this is unchecked, this contract will not send any documents to PCF. Even though they are in contract file and you set them up ready to send, they will not be sent to PCF if this is unchecked. So that may be one of the reasons why your document is not getting sent to PCF. And another thing that I wanted to get into, just skipping some of this other stuff, is the funding method. There are 3 funding methods in RMS. Tracking funding at the pre-planned obligation level, or you can track by computing the obligation amounts for payment based upon available funds, or you can manually enter those amounts. This pertains to how the program will automatically or not automatically calculate the obligations at the end of the payments. Normally, most contracts will be set to pre-plan obligations on all CLINs. So if we were to set that as the option, then we would add the CLINs and pay them based upon the pre-planned obligations. So you would assign the CLINs to the obligations beforehand. So I'm assigning this CLIN to this obligation. Say that I have $10,000 in this CLIN and it's ready to fund. And I'm going to use this first option. And I just noticed I did not have funding set up on this contract quite yet. So what I'm going to do is to go into the contract finances, contract funding, and this contract, just for the sake of a test, I'm going to put $10,000 award contract in this funding account. And then I'm going to put $10,000 in this funding account. So I have a total award contract value of $20,000. Back to the award CLINs. And make sure that the funding is set. I'm going to add a second CLIN here, and then I'll get that other one fixed. So this one also, I'm going to put in $10,000, just so that I can pay against it. So this should have been assigned to the 45 CLIN. So I'm going to, the 45 funding account number, so I'm actually going to refund this. And then everything should be balanced and everything should be good to go. All right. So now what I'm going to do, and We just have a little bit of time, so I'm going to show you how this will calculate. That says that there are no activities. There's a handy feature that we have in RMS. So if you have to set up activities for all of your CLINs, you can just go in here and you can add an activity for every single CLIN. And it will assign one-to-one the activities. And voila, we are done with that. And now we can go into the progress payments. Normally the contractor adds the payments, but we're going to do it in this case. So normally the contractor will do this and then you will import it. There are certain dates that need to be set. It doesn't really matter for our case what these dates are, so I'm just doing it very quickly to get these entered. We're going to leave these fields blank. But what I'm going to do is to put in $2,000 on this one CLIN, $1,000 on this other CLIN. So I'm going to make a payment of $3,000. And again, this is going to be very quick. And I'm going to do the total allowed earnings completed. Once I do that, this is where that calculation that we were talking about comes to play. These are pre-planned CLINs. So when you go to the obligation screen, it will automatically proportion these out with the funding that you have with those CLINs. And it does warn me here too that I need to have the prime contractor's addresses set. So I need to make sure that is set, and once that is set, then I can also go in to that final obligation tab. And it's ready to have the ENG 93 completed. Now I know we don't have very much time. Maybe we can extend this to another time. Or do you want me to keep going?
I think we need to see if there's any questions before we get off the line. So,
okay.
I'll just ask everybody on the phone, if you have any questions, you can enter them in the chat, or you can come off mute and just ask them. It looks like somebody in the chat, final payment package, close out between UFACE and the contractor.
So the question is about the final payment package. What exactly, Mr. Victor Abril, what exactly are you asking?
So there is a difference with the final payment. This is something that CFIMS has required like about a year and a half, 2 years ago. They required a final payment package which includes a signed ENG 93 in order to submit it to CFIMS to be paid. So there is a difference with the final payment. All the other payments you can submit to CFIMS with the ENG 93, which will be sent, but it does not need to be signed. However, the final payment will need to be signed in order to get paid. I know what some people have done in the past is to go ahead and pay everything out, even the final payment, as a non-final payment, and then the very last payment they'll put in as a $0, just to close everything out. That may not be the best practice, but that is what some people do. That way, the contractor can get paid, and the final payment has longer payment terms, so also people do that in order to get the contractor's final payment out quicker. Any other questions?
Yep. Under the tab of additional earnings, the bottom you have got periodic calculation, and if you click that, it's going to give you two options. What's the difference of the two options?
Right. I was going to get into that, but for sake of time, we can't right now. but I can answer the questions. And the standard calculation proportions these out and catches up and makes up for last payments in order to proportion these payments out as the program thinks it should be in order to not run out of money with your obligations at the end of the contract. However, if you wanted a payment that simply pays the CLINs with the obligations that they're assigned to, one-to-one, you use the periodic calculations, and that will use only the amount for that CLIN assigned to that obligation.
Questions?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Always.
So in a future training, we can actually go through this, all three of these different funding types, and I had it all set up ready to go where we can make payments with each one of these funding types and multiple payments and see how it actually catches up and how you can do a one-to-one comparison so that on that final screen, if you don't like how the program calculates it, you can actually change the calculation method without changing the contract setup. And that's what this setting here is for. But the contract setup and how it does the calculations there, you have three different methods that you can choose in contract setup to do that. And those three are to pre-plan them, which we started out doing. And then the second one is based upon available funds. And that means you don't even assign the CLINs to the obligations at the start, but the program proportions out during the payment the amounts to the obligations and keeps them proportionate so that you don't run out of money at the end of the contract. That's best when you are using obligations and you don't care where the money goes to, as long as the money is used by the end of the contract and you're not running out of money. Other contracts, it matters. At the start of the contract, you might have certain funds that need to be pulled out of certain funding accounts and obligations, and later you cannot pull out of those funding accounts. So you need to make sure and do pre-plan for those cases. You always have override capability, however, on that final obligations tab.
So it looks like we have a couple of things in the chat. The first one is from Victor about training for closeouts to include the project deliverables, CPARs, corrected deficiencies. Not sure what the &M manuals and warranty management plans, training, as-built drawings, and CPARs. Yeah, what to include for the closeouts is going to depend on your district's policy. I'm not 100% sure what all of the documents would be other than what was obviously shown up in RMS, but all of those documents can be added into the contract file if there's not a module for it inside of RMS. The next question that I'm seeing is, normally there are hundreds of installed property items, and can we delete the header starting second page of the DD1149 to save paper? At this time, we don't have the ability to change the document itself. If you want to be able to save paper for how it's being printed, it's possible you have an external program that you could use to use that, but I'm not entirely sure what that would be, unfortunately, and RMS does not provide that option at this point. How do I get recorded? So another person is asking how we get the recorded sessions from the RMS website. We actually will post all of these on our YouTube channel. It is, let me see if I can get it, and I'll post it in the chat so that way you'll have access to it in the future for when it comes out. Give me just a minute. Oops, hey Lord. Now, when you're on the YouTube channel, you can go ahead and, let's see here, go to the Support Center. You can look for the webinars taking it just a moment. There we go. Okay, I am posting into the chat the link for our YouTube website. This is going to be where you'll be able to find all of the trainings that we have provided. Now, one thing to note about our YouTube channel, we post new trainings to that channel every month. Usually there's 4 things. They're usually 5-minute videos, and they will help you with various different issues that you might have, training topics on how to do various different things. Some of it is for finances, some of it is for closeouts, some of it is for submittals, QC reports, QA reports, how to do various different things. The only thing that we don't tell you how to do is anything that has to do with district policy, as you will have to contact your district to find out that information. But how to do stuff in RMS, we provide you with information on our web channel, on the YouTube channel, excuse me. So you can find that information there. And the sessions will probably be up. It will probably take us a couple of weeks to take all of the sessions, because we're going to take what we did last week plus what we're doing this week, and we're going to compile it into one and then post it on the website. So that'll take a few weeks before we can get that up there, but it will be up. I'm not entirely sure how long it will take to get that up there, though, but it will be up within the next couple of weeks.
All right. There was one more comment in the chat. It was just about future training. But it doesn't sound like anybody has any other questions. If you do, send us an email. There's one more training tonight. It starts at 6 o'clock Central. That's our current time zone. So just for reference, it's 3:09 here, p.m. If you plan to attend, or if you want to attend and there's something specific we didn't go over today but that you would like for us to go over this evening, please let us know as soon as possible, and we'll do our best to try to address it. But other than that, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you dialing in. And like I said, if you have any questions, just feel free to shoot us an email or give us a call. So last time I'll ask, is there any other questions before we hang up? Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.